There's a lot of power that we look away from. We don't want to believe that we have as much power as we have. In fact, we spend the bulk of our time running away from our power. We have assigned roles to ourselves and to every single person in our lives. That's a very powerful thing. And we have the power to reassign roles at any time we desire. Now, first and foremost, I think is important to understand what our role is. What is the role that we've assigned to ourselves versus the role that Spirit has assigned to us? And you can discover those roles just by going throughout your day. You know that you are working within the role that you've assigned yourself if you are easily upset or if your happiness is fragile. Then that's something that you've assigned to yourself all by yourself. But if you accept the role that Spirit has assigned to you, then your happiness is eternal and your joy is eternal no matter what's going on around you, because you recognize that nothing can move you because Spirit is immovable. And the same thing goes with the roles that we've assigned to other people. Some people, we want them to act in a certain way. And when they don't act in a certain way, or when they do act in a way that's contrary to the role that we've assigned to them, we get very upset with them. And so we know that we've assigned that role ourselves versus the role that Spirit has assigned to them, based on the fact that we have a very fragile emotional state. And our happiness is dependent on whether people fulfill or don't fulfill the particular roles that we've assigned to them. You have a lot to do with how your world is created. The perception that you have of this world is based upon the roles that you've assigned to each player in that script, and your role that you've assigned to yourself as the star in that script. It's very easy to get lost in the drama. It's very easy to get lost in the storyline of this particular movie that you're in. And that's how the ego likes it. But we have to recognize that this is all under our control based on the roles that we've assigned to ourselves and to others. So for instance, something happened just the other day, or just yesterday to me. This is a great example of this. Somebody commented on one of my videos, and they didn't like that I was using Psalms in my practice, and they felt like they really caught me doing something nefarious, because they figured that it wasn't witchy enough, and that I was some sort of born again Christian or something. And I tried to explain to them that, that the Psalms predate Christianity and that there's a very long magical tradition, and all they have to do is read some of the ancient grimoires and they can realize that the Psalms have always been a part of this, but it didn't really work so well. What was happening, though, is this person was in pain, and they were lashing out because they were in pain. And they had said something in their post about being raised in a cult. And it got me to think, well, if they were raised in a cult, and then they find this wonderful witchcraft channel that they feel really safe in, and then they discover that there's some psalms involved in the witchcraft channel, it makes sense why that could be triggering to them. Just thinking about it, of course it could be triggering to them. But see, had I not given Spirit a moment to show me that, then I would have continued with my role that I assigned to this person, which was their role in my life is being a jerk right now, and my role is to lash back out at them and show them, who's boss on my channel. Whereas Spirit came in and gave me another way of looking at that and changed their role for a minute. As instead of somebody that was lashing out at me because they're a jerk, they were trying to get some help. They were trying to heal themselves from some trauma. And when they felt like, when they got triggered, they didn't know what else to do except for to lash out at me. And so my response then was able to be changed, because then I changed my role. My role isn't to protect my channel. My role isn't to protect myself or defend my psalmic practice. My role is to recognize, wow, this person's in pain, and perhaps there's another way I could respond to this. So then I responded to them by saying, there's a lot of other stuff on the channel that doesn't even have anything to do with Psalms. And so you could get a lot, maybe you might still get a lot out of this channel, and just avoid the Psalms if they bother you. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Maybe give me another chance. Maybe you'll like this channel. But it was a really wonderful affirmation to me that the roles that I and we assign to people aren't necessarily the truth. And that when we can give ourselves just a moment to open our minds and listen to that inner guidance, inner wisdom, we can see that usually the roles that we've assigned to people are extremely wrong, are extremely incorrect, and completely the opposite of what the truth is about them, whether those roles are positive or negative in our lives. Because really, what is our role here? What does Spirit want from us? We think our role here is to make more money. We think our role here is to, is to create a business. We think our role here is maybe to have a family, to buy a home, to get new clothes, to get a nice car, to get a good retirement account, is to keep our bodies healthy, long enough so that we don't get sick and die too young. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we think our roles are, all kinds of roles that we assign to ourselves. Then we assign roles to other people. This person's a teacher, so they're supposed to act in a certain way. This person's my mate, they're supposed to act in a certain way. This person is my friend, they're supposed to act in a certain way. This person's my enemy, they're supposed to act in a certain way. And we want everything just as we believe it should be in our minds. And when our role or their role don't seem to jive with what we've decided, then we get very, very upset because things aren't the way we want them. And then if we do get upset, the last thing our ego wants to look at is, well, you're upset because they're not fulfilling the role that you've assigned to them. No. That's not what the ego is going to be trying to tell you. The ego is going to say, you're upset because they're wrong. You're upset because they're bad. You're upset because you're wrong. You're upset because you're bad, right? So the ego is all about blame, because if you blame, then you can reinforce those roles, those incorrect roles that you've decided everybody's supposed to play, you and everybody else. Now, we can even assign roles to circumstances, the role of money in my life, the role of my car in my life, the role of my shoes in my life, all those kinds of things, everything we've assigned roles to. And the thing is that even if every single thing works out exactly the way that you want it to in the way that you've written your script for those people, you're still not going to be happy. You're still not going to be happy because it's still not enough. It's still not enough, and you're going to do whatever you can do to tweak that to make sure that somebody is not fulfilling their role for you so that you have a reason to be upset. But the reason why you're upset is not because they're doing something wrong, saying something wrong, even if it seems like it. The reason why you're upset is because they're not acting, or the world is not responding in a way that you've previously said it needs to. And the reason why that's always a road to nowhere is because we don't know how to assign roles, but we do it anyway. We think we know what this person should do in order for them to be happy and us to be happy. We think we know what we should do and what our role is in order for us to be happy, but we don't. Because what the ego's trick is, what the ego's game is, and what we always buy into is that there's this litany of stuff that if only we could accomplish this and then that and this happened and then that happened and this happened and that happened, then everything's going to be happy. Then we're going to be happy. Now, two things can happen. Either that doesn't happen that way, therefore we're not happy, or things happen exactly as we want it to, and we're still not happy because it's not what we really wanted. Why? Because we were incapable of knowing what was going to make us happy. Because when we are operating in our daily consciousness, we're operating out of this false belief that we're separate from our good, So if we've created an entire world and worldview based on being separated from our good, how is that worldview going to inform us what is going to be good for us or make us happy? The worldview itself is off. Well, you can't find escape from anything by using the thing that's keeping you prisoner. Right? You can't escape from prison by talking your jailer into to letting you out. The only way to escape from prison is from something outside of that system to let you out. So outside of that system is the wisdom of who we really are, is our true self, is our divine nature. But it's so foreign to the system that we are involved in that it seems as though it's completely separate from us. And that's why we always need to rely on that inner guidance to give us new data so that we can unassign certain roles and reassign them according to Spirit's understanding of what our function is, Spirit's understanding of our role, and Spirit's understanding of other people's role. Now, Spirit will always use your goals in order to show you what your role is. So that's why we say, yeah, do your goals, make your goals, do your best. If only I had these things, then I'd be happy. Absolutely, that's your side of the equation. You're going to do all of that. You're going to make those goals, but then you bring them to Spirit and you say, can you please tweak these? This is the best I could come up with. So you did your part, and now let Spirit do Spirit's part, and Spirit's going to redefine all of those things for you. And so then, rather than my role is a mother, or my role is a lover, or my role is a business owner, my role is a whatever, or those really neurotic things, my role is being abused, my role is being a doormat, whatever those things are. When you give that to Spirit, Spirit can come back and say, you have one role, and that's to bring light. You have one role here, and that's to bring love where there is none. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And I'm going to show you how to do that in the present moment, each and every moment. Your only job is to bring your goals to me so that I can show you where you're on and where you're off, and to keep coming back to me at each and every turn and asking. That's why spiritual practice is so important. If you get up in the morning and the first thing you do is you start ruminating about how bad everything is, or you start worrying about what your day is going to be like, or you start thinking about, oh gosh, I hope blah, blah, blah doesn't happen, then you've set the tone for your day. And you've assigned roles to yourself, and you've assigned roles to everybody else. And so you're just going to go off half-cocked all day long on all these wild goose chases based on roles that don't have anything to do with reality. But if instead you get up and you take 1 to 5 minutes, or maybe even longer if you're into it, and just sit and listen and just ask your guide to show you where's my highest good today? What is my function here? What is my role? What is everybody else's role? Well, then what you do is you put yourself kind of under the guidance of your teacher for the whole day. And so then when you go out in your day, you are predisposed to saying, I don't know, let me ask, to yourself. Rather than quickly responding, quickly reacting to certain things, you're going to say, Or even if you do react, you can say, maybe I can redo that. So rather than saying, oh, I messed that up, oh, well, maybe better luck next time. No, you go back to your teacher. The teacher will show you how to clean it up, make it right? So, but remember that that the roles that you assign to yourself are usually very, very different than the role Spirit has for you. The role Spirit has for you is to give love. Give love to yourself and give love to others. Now, the way that you do that, you don't understand either. So it's best to ask. What's the best way for me to give love in this situation? And then you listen for guidance. Because sometimes giving love doesn't look very loving. Sometimes you have to set some boundaries. Sometimes you have to say no, and that's the most loving response. But again, you don't decide that all by yourself. You go in and you ask that higher wisdom. You could say that your inner guide is the most sane part of you. It's you in your right mind. That's the way you could look at it. But because it's so different than the way that the ego has things set up for you, for all intents and purposes in this world, it seems like a very different entity from you. But in reality, it's not. In reality, it's just your best thinking. It's you in your right mind. It's you as a sane person rather than you reacting to the insanity of this world. Now, you can change other people's roles as well, because the only role that anybody ultimately has for you is receiving love from you or giving love to you. So the way you respond to somebody that's either asking for love from you or giving you love, the only appropriate response is love in return. It's the only response. And when I say love, I'm not talking about some namby-pamby, new agey, fluffy kind of everything is just so sweet all the time. That's not always what love looks like. Love is a very fierce thing because it's the primal force of the entire universe. A lightning bolt is love, So when I say love, I mean that the infinite intelligence of the universe working through you to respond in the most appropriate way in any situation. But it's always love. It's always trying to be of help. It's always trying to be of service. But remember, the way we think that we should help or can be of service all by ourselves is oftentimes nothing more than interference. So if we ask, how can I best respond in this situation from our inner guidance, we will usually get something that's very different than our first knee-jerk response. Now, as we get better and better and better, our first response starts to look a lot more like what our inner guide teaches us. But it's still a good idea to check in anyway, to not leave ourselves to our own devices, because we are not completely healed here. No matter how far along you are not a completely healed person here. And so it's always best to look toward the part of you that is healed. And that is that inner guidance, or that spirit guide, or that inner teacher, that guardian angel. So it's all about the roles that we have assigned to ourselves and to others and to situations. That's the problem, not the thing itself. Because what happens is when somebody comes to us, it's not a mistake. When somebody crosses our path, it's not arbitrary. They cross our path because they need us. They were sent to us because they need us. But to have the idea of what they need from us all by ourselves is not a good one. Instead, we ask, how can I be best of service here? How can I how can I serve Spirit the best? And Spirit will say, this person, blah, 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 blah. This person's role for you now is blah, 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 blah. Your role in this person's life is now blah, 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 blah. And so you're letting Spirit redefine the roles for you. Now imagine, as you do this, how different your life starts to look. If the whole thing's an illusion and a big old nightmare anyway, imagine if the dreamer starts to get data about the dream from Spirit rather than from their ego. What is the dream going to start looking like? This dream is going to start looking more and more like the reality that Spirit lives in rather than the insanity that the ego lives in. Right? And so little by little, as we wake up, the dream starts to look much nicer because we have reassigned the roles of those figures within our dream. We've reassigned them based on what Spirit's will for us is, rather than our own small will. And this is what Aleister Crowley calls the true will. When you are living your true will, that means Spirit is showing you exactly what will make you happy, what will make you powerful, what you're here to do, what your certain talents and strengths are, what is uniquely you, and how you can best be of service here. When you're doing that, everything seems to work out for you in wonderful ways, and you never butt up against anybody else's will, because you are living exactly the way that that divine will has dictated. But if you're trying to live as your own small will, without any connection to truth, without any understanding of why you really came here, then the only thing you can do is butt up against other people's little wills. All it is a bunch of conflict. All it is a bunch of conflict resolution, conflict resolution, conflict resolution. It's a very boring world filled with all kinds of pain and disaster and fear. But when we start to say, well, wait, I want to know what my true will is. I want to know what my true role is, and I want to know what everybody else's true role is in my life. I'm not going to assign those roles anymore. I'm going to let my inner guidance do that for me. Thank you so much for spending a little time with me today. It's my great pleasure, as always, to work with you. And until next time, much, much love and many, many blessings.